A seed signifies a new beginning. When we carefully plant the seed and ensure that it has ample water and sunshine, that seed has the potential to grow into something wonderful, delicious even. But a seed is so much more than something we put in the ground. Seeds are things we can carefully preserve and share with others so that they can grow something wonderful too. To understand all the possibilities that a seed contains, we can look to dried beans. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, navy beans. While they vary in shape, size, texture, and color, dried beans are seeds we can eat, and they have served an important role in many cultures across generations. In fact, for over 12,000 years, humans have been collecting, saving, and exchanging seeds. For about half that time, 6,000 years, the common dried bean has been grown in the Americas, making it one of the longest cultivated plants in history. So what makes it this unassuming bean a crop that farmers choose to plant time and time again? To answer this question, let's go on a field trip to 2 Iowa farms, one here in Tama County and the other in Pocahontas County, to see how they're grown. When we think of beans in Iowa, we generally think of soybeans, not dried beans. If you were to close your eyes and randomly pick a spot on a map of Iowa, your finger has about a 1 in 4 chance of landing on a place that grows soybeans. Cousins to dried beans, soybeans are grown on about 10 million of Iowa's 35.7 million acres. Soybeans, which Iowa grows more of than any other state except Illinois, are a cash crop because they can be used to make animal feed, fuel, consumer goods, and human food like tofu. While only corn beats out soybeans as Iowa's top crop, some Iowa farmers are experimenting with a different type of legume in their fields, dried beans. But before we get into that, what's a legume anyway? A word that is fun to say, but tricky to spell. A legume is the fruit that grows on a plant that belongs to the pea family. A legume could be a soybean or a peanut, a green bean or a snap pea, or something called a pulse. Pulses are the dried seeds of the legume plants. Chickpeas are pulses, lentils are too, and so are dried beans, of which there are more than 400 types, including the black, pinto, and kidney beans I mentioned earlier. The reason why Iowans don't hear about dried beans often is because they're more challenging than soybeans to grow in our state's humid climate. However, dried beans offer tremendous value, both to people who grow them and our own diets. Kidney beans, which are deep red and get their name from the bodily organ they resemble, are one of the signature crops grown at Red Earth Gardens, which is located in Tama County between Cedar Rapids and Des Moines. The farm is operated by members of the Meskwaki Nation, also known as the Sac and Fox tribe of the Mississippi in Iowa. It's the state's only federally recognized American Indian tribe. Here at Red Earth Gardens, they're not just feeding mouths, they're feeding a movement.
We do a no-till system that our ancestors did. No machinery, no pesticides, no herbicide. The no-till requires us to keep the roots in and build up the soil. We try to disturb the soil as little as possible.
That's Waylon Wolf, instructional farm manager at Red Earth Gardens. He's on a mission to cultivate the Meskwaki Nation's deep connection with the land and ensure that members of the tribe have year-round access to affordable foods that support a well-balanced diet. Red Earth Gardens accomplishes this mission by not only giving whatever it grows to the community, but also helping individuals learn how to grow their own food.
We do a lot of transplants, so everything that we start at the beginning of the year right here in our greenhouse won't grow more than we need, just as a precaution anyways. So whatever we have left, we'll offer to the community for their own home gardens.
Winter can be a difficult time to find local foods. There isn't a bounty of produce as there is in the warmer months. That's where dried beans play an especially important role. Dried beans are shelf-stable, meaning they can last a long time in your pantry and will still be safe to eat months after they're harvested. They offer a lot of nutritional value and are packed with protein, which helps you feel full and build strong muscles and bones. The value of beans has been understood by the indigenous people for generations. Different bean varieties spread across the Americas on trade routes. Tribes would plant different varieties to see which was best suited for the region they lived and would often make that variety a staple of their diet. At the farm, high schoolers enrolled in Red Earth Gardens' Youth Employment Program get to learn how to grow dried beans along with corn and squash and a wide variety of other vegetables. Together, beans, corn, and squash are known as the Three Sisters in American Indian cultures. Each crop has its own unique strengths that support the growth of the overall family when they're planted together. This practice is known as companion planting. The crops work harmoniously with each other. Beans absorb nitrogen gas from the air and convert it into compounds that act as a natural fertilizer and supply nutrients to the other plants in the ground. Tall corn stalks give bean plants vines, something sturdy to latch onto so that they can grow upwards to reach the sunlight. bushy squash plants provide ample ground coverage and help slow the process of evaporation so that the soil can stay moist and facilitate the growth of the other plants. Plus, their spiny leaves help ward off pests. The Three Sisters indigenous growing tradition offers an important lesson that when we plant the right mix of crops, we can keep our farmlands and soil healthy. We'll come back to Red Earth Gardens in a little bit, but for now, let's travel about 2.5 hours northwest to Pocahontas County, where we'll get a closer look at the growing process of beans. In 2021, farmer Abram Frank began growing black beans on the land he rents from Helen Gunderson, a local food advocate. Together, they seek to use sustainable agriculture practices for the health of the environment, the food they grow, and the land that has been in Gunderson's family for 4 generations. Frank grows everything organically, making crop rotation an important part of his work on the farm. Like companion planting, crop rotation helps ensure good soil health. When different plants take each other's place in the soil across from growing seasons, that soil can maintain a variety of nutrients. Black beans, for this reason, are particularly handy.
Crop that allows us to kind of shift our rotation a little bit, so we get them planted a little later in the spring than what would be typical for this area, and at the same time we get to harvest them earlier than what would be normal for this area. So it kind of gives us more time in the spring and the fall to avoid early spring rains, and at the same time at the end of the season we can get the crop off the field and be able to perform field work earlier in the fall for it.
Well, the growing season can vary by a few weeks depending on the weather conditions. This year, Frank sowed beans directly into the ground the first 2 weeks of June. Remember, dried beans are seeds, so what we put on our plates is also what we plant. Just don't cook any beans that you plan to sow. Now, with some crops, such as tomatoes or melons, farmers prefer to start the growing process indoors by planting seeds in containers and keeping them in greenhouses. That way, plants are less vulnerable to springtime's fickle weather. They can later be transplanted outdoors. However, beans don't tend to transplant very well, so you plant them directly into the field in rows. After a seed has been planted, its outer coating begins to crack open and a root is established. It only takes about a week for the seedling to emerge from the soil's surface. Over the next 45 days or so, the black bean plants are fairly low maintenance as they branch out and grow more leaves. Frank and his team spend time managing any weeds that crop up. Weeds can harm crops by competing for the same resources that the beans rely on. Because this farm is organic, weeding requires mechanical equipment and hands-on methods rather than herbicides. After the vegetative stage, the bean plants reach the flowering stage. The flowers that form on the plant are self-pollinating. Bean plants are one of the rare crops that don't require extra help from bees and other insects to bear fruit. The flowers eventually turn into pods, which look like long and narrow boats. In those pods, the beans grow. Summer's increased humidity can make the plants vulnerable to mold. Black beans are more commonly grown in arid climates, found in places like the Dakotas and parts of Canada. But despite the challenges here, Frank says the consumer demand for organic beans makes them worth growing.
Weather plays a big part in that. Rain at the wrong time when beans are ready to be harvested. Potentially they could be on the ground ready to be picked up and we get a big rain event and that can cause some really big problems.
While there isn't anything that can be done about how much it rains, Farmer Frank puts down drainage tile to make the field less prone to ponding and flooding. All told, it takes about 90 days from planting for the beans to reach full maturity. By September, the most challenging part of the process has come, harvesting. Before we get down to eating, let's revisit Red Earth Gardens, where harvesting kidney beans is even more labor-intensive.
It's all by hand, from planting to watering to harvesting, cutting the whole plant off, picking each little pod off, and we got to break all those apart just to get the little beans out.
Though it isn't easy, abiding by the farming methods of their ancestors allows the members of the Meskwaki Nation to foster a deeper connection to their culture. They'll wait to shell the beans by hand until everything else in the field has run its course and it's getting closer to winter. There's something about hard work that makes the end product all the more satisfying. The time and care farmers have put into the beans they've produced is evident when you buy local. While it's true that beans have a long shelf life, the sooner they get into your hands after they've been harvested, the more flavorful they're likely to be. Locally grown beans don't take as long to arrive on your plate. Red Earth Gardens sells some of what it grows at the Meskwaki Farmers Market, which is open to the public and features produce and goods grown and made by members of the tribal community. The black beans that Farmer Frank grows are distributed on the mass market. So while you can't buy them directly from him at this time, he encourages everyone to read the labels on the foods they buy at the grocery store. When you head to the grocery store to buy a bag of beans, you may be overwhelmed by the number of options. The good news is that whether you go for kidney beans or black beans or something else entirely, they're versatile and can be easily substituted for one another in a variety of recipes. The key to flavorful beans is that you give them a good soak in some water overnight before you cook them. Once you've got that down, the recipe possibilities are endless. But on the coldest winter nights, is there anything better than a steaming bowl of chili? If your family is looking to switch things up and make something different than a traditional bowl of tomato-based chili, white chicken chili might just be the ticket. Cooked low and slow with green chilies, great northern beans, and a blend of fragrant spices, this dish is both creamy and comforting. As we've learned on both of the farms we visited today, there's a good reason why dried beans have long played an important role in our food systems. When we eat locally grown beans, we're honoring a vibrant past while also cultivating a brighter future here in Iowa.